1, Councilman Rios.
Here.
District 2, Councilman Pastor is excused. District 3, Councilman Latham.
Present.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilman Gonzalez.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. Fernando, can you lead us in the invocation, please?
Dear Lord, thank you that we can be gathered here tonight to do the city's business. Please help all those people that are struggling to make ends meet. We know that these are hard times. And we look, as we have all these changes in our country, that we find an opportunity for our community and our people to prosper. Please help us to make the best decisions possible and bless our community and our country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mariano, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll start with a summary of current events. Mariano, we'll start with you down there.
Yes, for the second time in a very long time, we've got a fire in Arizona in February. The last time they had one, they had to warn the firefighters of frostbite. So it's another bad forced land. And we've got winds blowing right now. I could barely close my door when I was over at Fry's this afternoon twice. So be very careful out there. If a fire is gonna catch, it's gonna run in these conditions. And we are just as susceptible as Prescott is or the Los Angeles area, so be careful out there. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariano. Fernando?
I wear another hat, and that is I'm on the community college board, and I just wanted to congratulate the community college on they received their accreditation. So it's what they call I forget the name of the term,
Conditional?
but
Is it
yeah,
conditional?
it's so we're basically we've been granted the opportunity to move forward as a college on our own, and so we just have to make sure we do some reports and they make sure that we're doing everything right, and then we'll be fully accredited on our own. So it was a long battle, but we've made it, so we're very happy.
That's great news. Great. Freddie?
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mayor. I also have nothing to report. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. I had the pleasure of going down to the League of Cities with the mayor, Paul, and Mariano a couple of weeks ago to listen to the legislators and senators about the food tax bill that is very important. That we had to we didn't have to, but we listened to them what they had to say, and we went ahead and said what we had to say. So it was a very good an experience, first time for me. And then we're going back, the mayor, myself, and Paul, we're going back tomorrow to the Capitol to talk about the food tax as well. So food tax is very important. If we're to lose that, the city's going to lose about 1.4 million. So we really got to push the vote for the food tax to make sure it stays in place. So that'll be interesting. We'll have more information after tomorrow. And then I was driving through downtown on Saturday, I believe, Saturday and Sunday, and I noticed that the creek beds are being cleaned out. I saw tractors and guys out there and cleaning it all up. It looks really, really, really good. So I just want to thank John and his crew, and if you could pass that along to your crew, that they're doing a hell of a job. And I'm glad you're getting ahead of the game. So thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on House Bill 2021, the food tax bill. It was a signed committee. That means it's gone to the next level. So a committee, is Ways and Means, will hear all the information on it, and then they have the option to pass it forward on to the next committee. And then the next step will go to a resolution and vote to the people. Last 2 years ago, we fought this battle. We were able, it did go through the Senate and the House, but luckily our governor vetoed the bill. But this time, they're going around the system and they're putting it into a resolution. That means the governor cannot veto it. That means it goes to the vote of the people. So really, we're going down there to testify in front of the Ways and Means tomorrow. And there's 71 cities in Arizona out of 91 that have a food tax. And it would be a loss of over $200 million to different cities. For us, $1.4 million is a lot of money for our annual budget. So let's see where it goes tomorrow. We need to continue to educate all residents, all Arizonans on the impact it'll take, and hopefully this committee will not move it forward, although it's hard to say tomorrow. I had my first coffee with the mayor last month, and the vice mayor joined me. Our next one, it will be next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and that's at the Copper Cities Coffee. And it's open to any residents or non-residents that have questions and want to learn more about our city, where we've been, and where we're going. So it's next week, the 19th, Copper Cities Coffee at 1 o'clock. And then I have a letter that I received here from a resident in Globe. I'm going to omit the name of the patient and the wife that writing the letter because of HIPAA. But this is addressed to Glowfire B Shift. And it says, how can you possibly thank someone for bringing your husband back from the dead? There are no words that can convey the gratitude that is deep in my heart. On December the 13th, my husband had a heart attack and died in our living room. Many things contributed to my husband's recovery, including our closeness to the fire station. But mostly his coming back to me is a result of the EMT's continuing chest compressions while he laid on the living room floor and out the door to the ambulance and all the way to the hospital. Records indicate that was 30 to 40 minutes. Thank you for not giving up on him, because today he remembers his past. He reads, writes, walks with a walker. You truly brought my husband back to me. In the future, don't let the bad days discourage you, because sometimes you work a miracle like my husband's. And the names of the Globe firefighters on that incident B shift told by Chief Robinson was Captain Angel Amato, Engineer Paramedic Chris Mills, Firefighter Paramedic Daniel Hicklin, Firefighter Paramedic Randy Cormany, and Firefighter EMT Jose Valadez. So this letter was sent to us, and thank you again for the job you do. And it's good to get these things, you hear a lot of different things, but it's good to get these because there's a lot of things that happen that you guys do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Good job.
That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, couple things. We have a new set of stop signs at Hill and Maple. It seems to be going really well. It's a little shocker for the first couple of days, but everybody's kind of adapted. So we're happy there. Make that safer as our traffic study indicated, the line of sight issue. Secondly, today, auditors are on site completing our FY23 audit. Eric, our administrative services manager, is overseeing the managing of the audit, making sure that they have what they need, working with Dennis, working with his staff, with Danny, Susie, and Laura to make sure that they have all the documents and get in and out of here with as complete as possible. We tried to preload them this year with this audit with many of the documents they need before they get here, which shortens the time and shortens the turnaround time. Get this audit wrapped up, this will be FY23, and then we can get on FY24, which is where we should be, is doing FY24. So that's really good news. And then on the food tax, it's a complicated issue for how City of Globe and this council has structured how we pay for services. And I think future agenda items may talk a little bit more about bringing a presentation very soon to council to kind of explain the details and some of the trade-offs that this council's made that utilizing the food tax to spread the tax burden to those visitors and travelers to protect those residents through property tax. So, but we can talk more about that But tomorrow, yes, we down there, the continuing resolution is being heard in the Ways and Means Committee on the House, and Mayor will be signed up to testify opposed. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we have our first community call to the public, and this is the time that any citizen is able to speak to the council. You are limited to about 3 minutes, and at this time, the council cannot respond to any comments, but can direct staff for follow-up. So I do have one call to the public. I got Deborah Espinosa, and she's here to speak on the Hill Street School Apartments.
Thank all of the council first for all of the stuff that you guys have done for getting Hill Street Apartments going. It has been amazing, and the support before the building even started construction from you guys has been great. So I want to thank all of you guys for that. It has been an amazing thing to watch it go from nothing to what we have now, and working there is just, I can't even express how much I appreciate working there, and I'm just thankful for the city for that. But I wanted to update on what Paul was saying about the stoplights. The residents have asked me to pass on, thank you for the, or not the stoplights, but the stop signs and the crosswalks. They're very thankful for those. They walked out the other day and they're like, there's crosswalks, and I had about 4 of them come in very excited. So they were really glad to see that coming in there. And even with the flashing lights on the stop signs, we've got quite a few people still running them. So I know it'll take time, but they're very thankful for the crosswalks there. They were looking for something like that. Lastly, I just wanted to update you guys. We have about 20 units left available in the apartments. 8 of those are being held by a DDD contract right now, and they're supposed to have them filled for us hopefully anytime. We're waiting for that contract to finish being signed, but they're taking 8 of our units for developmental disability citizens. So I think that's an awesome thing that we have going. The other 12 units are running if somebody's, if anybody's under 29,000 for a single person. That's kind of the age, the kind of area we're looking at. And for 2 people, it's 33,600 a year. This is their yearly gross. So we're kind of at that top end right now, and we've got quite a few on a waiting list for the lower end apartments. But the ones right around that 29,000 are what we really need to fill. And you know, if anybody you guys know of, or you know, pass it on as everybody's around, let us know. I can work some magic and get some people in there with some other ways, even if they don't quite make that income. So I can get them in on that. And lastly, if anybody has anything, any of you council members have anything you guys ever want to bring to our residents there that you guys can enrich them on, teach them on, anything like that, we are looking for people to do presentations in there about twice a month. And it can be on anything. It can be on how to balance their checkbooks. You know, it can be anything, you know, under the sun that you guys can come up with just to kind of help seniors be able to keep doing living their normal life there. So we are kind of targeting the over 55 there, since that's predominantly what we have. So anybody, and this goes for anybody in the city that wants to do an event there that just for our residents, we would love to have them come in and do something.
Thank you.
So that's all I have for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the update.
And Mr. Mayor, we have no one online, at least emailing any questions, and anything on the phone? Nothing on the phone? Nothing on the phone.
Okay. So we'll go to special presentations. Item 3A is the City of Globe is pleased to announce the addition of our new staff member, Stephanie Chidas, court clerk, who joined the city on September 16th, 2024.
And who is, there you go.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, esteemed council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm introducing Stephanie Chides as our court clerk. She is a happy mom of 3. She and I made our first acquaintance some years ago. She worked at the Public Fiduciary's office. And I've been the attorney for the Public Fiduciary's office for years, so I got to know her there. She went on to county finance. She worked in the finance department for about 9 years. What I can tell you about Stephanie is that she's lively. She's easy to work with. She gets up to speed quickly. Serving as court clerk is not easy. It requires a multitasking ability, going between computer work and input work and reading documents and reading citations, inputting data, and dealing with the public at the window, dealing with the public on the phone, coordinating between courts. It's really pretty complicated, but she's gotten up to speed very quickly. She's smart, she's adaptable. She's shown her smarts and her adaptability just by surviving the first couple of days, which is really that's the trial period. She's oriented towards problem solving, which is huge because people come in to the court and they're usually not happy. They have a problem, they have a ticket, they have money that they're looking at and maybe gonna have to pay over. And there may be a myriad of problems. There may be complexity with their tickets. They may have lacked insurance, not have a child in a seatbelt. There can be all kinds of things for the clerks to have to deal with. But she's very oriented towards problem solving. She brings a very necessary high level of integrity to the court. It's required in the court, that high level of integrity, because it just requires an attention to detail and a clear black and white, I think inscrutable is the right word, inscrutable orientation to honesty and detail. There's no fudging, in other words. She's cheerful. I usually come in, I give her a little hard time to start the day. But she's non-judgmental and non-judgmental with the public, which is sometimes really hard to achieve. People come in and they sometimes start out really tough. And she doesn't take a big defensive posture and just close off to them. She works with them, which is great. It's huge. So she's wonderful with the public, wonderful with the citizenry. She's paying me by the word to stand up here, so I told her I'd keep it short and sweet. And so the last thing that I would add is that she's a welcome addition to the court staff and to the city staff as well. Welcome, Stephanie. Congratulations, you got the job.
Say something, do you want?
No. She's modest, I left out the modest.
So now we'll go to item B. We have council recognize the retirement of Globe City Magistrate John Perlman for 16 years of service to the city of Globe.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, tonight we're honoring Judge Perlman. He is our current city magistrate, but he, in the hubba of getting our court restructured, John comes to us and says, hey, by the way, I'm retiring.
By the way,
Yeah, on top of, but it worked out, the timing is good, and we were configuring anyway. So we're here tonight to honor this retirement and transition. As you know, Judge Perlman has been with the city. We were talking before 2005, 2006. There's a lot of history and changeover that predates all of us. But I know that having that independent magistrate at the time, given the situation, was the right thing to do. And then he has grown and we have grown as things have gotten more complex and things have ramped up. But he's ready to spend some more time with, what was it you were gonna do?
family and horses,
Family and horses, in that order?
pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. So we're gonna honor him for that. And then I must acknowledge that Judge Reardon is here, our JP judge, and also now city magistrate, who will be taking over duties once, we're doing a transition. Anything left from 2024, Judge Perlman's, anything coming in 2025, is Judd Reardon's, and I know Judge Reardon has been very excited about all the wonderful cases we've been sending his way. So, along with a little transition fun and frolic. So, anyways, thank you very much, Judge Perlman. And I know you, a couple words to talk, and if you can fill them in a little about the history, because I think you predate most everybody here in the room, except of course John.
And now I'm paying myself by the word, so I'll keep it really short and sweet.
Judge, if you can stand back a little so that Mike will pick you up if they're on
You
the line.
bet, you bet. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve as the magistrate for the city of Globe. It is truly the high point in my legal career as a legal practitioner. I've been lawyering in Globe exclusively for 30 years. But this is the high point, being the magistrate judge. I truly love the work. I love working with the people. I said it was an honor and a pleasure to do the job. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with law enforcement. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the public. It's been huge. I will miss it. There's a degree of happiness and a degree of sadness that goes along with leaving a position such as this. I love sitting on the bench. I love the problem solving that I get to do. But I'm going to be 64 soon, next month, and I want to retire and go enjoy my horses and my family while I have the health and the strength and the wherewithal and the ability to go do it. So I'm going to go do it. I think the high point that I should just throw out there is that we kept the City of Globe Magistrate Court out of any negative newspaper light the entire time, which I think is big, because we're under a lot of scrutiny. We're under the scrutiny of the Supreme Court and the administrative office of the courts, the presiding judge. Of course, the public has scrutiny on the court. Law enforcement has scrutiny on the court. But we did pretty well for 16, they're about 16 or 17 years. I can't go out without giving a degree of acclaim to Debbie Mayo. She runs so much. She is so much of the machine. I get a lot of the credit because I sit up there in a robe and I command the presence. But the reality is she makes all of the other background information work, functional. She makes the record of it. So before I go out, I have to say thank you, Debbie, for years of hard work, phenomenal service. You're amazing.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure working with you.
It really was.
So, and Mr. Mayor, members of council, to Judge Perlman, I have to tell you, now I can say the secret of Judge Perlman's court, okay? He lets people talk, he listens, people feel validated, people feel like they had their day in court, and in the process, they usually admit to whatever violation they're up there for.
I warn them. It's so typical of me to start a proceeding and say, you have a right to remain silent, and it works if you use it. And I give them an example. I say, it's not uncommon that someone will say, for example, I knew I was going too fast, but I didn't think I was going that fast. That doesn't help their case. But I really do let people express themselves. I give them very wide latitude to bring up all kinds of things that may or may not be pertinent to the case. But it helps validate the public. It helps a litigant, a defendant, state their cause. And then when I explain to them why I made a decision, that helps too. That helps. They walk out, they may have walked in a huff. Sometimes they say, I've had people come in and they say, I don't even know why I'm here. You've already made up your mind. And I say, no. An empty mind is a flexible mind. And I start out knowing nothing. And that, I think that helps put people at ease and helps them feel like, as Paul said, they had their day in court. They did their best, it just wasn't quite good enough. So I've really enjoyed the work, thank you all.
Mayor, any
comments from council?
I
Fernando, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I remember when I met you, Judge, gosh, it's been 14 years, I think now. And we go back that long, not only as partners of work, but as a good friendship. We built a good friendship. And I gotta say, I remember I bought a drum set about 10 years ago and found out he plays drums. So we got together and played drums for a little bit. And maybe we can do that again.
I'd love to.
Awesome. But
You
I
bet,
just
I
wanna-
may have time to do so.
I'm retired too now, so. But anyway, I just want to thank you so much for
You are
your
welcome.
service and for your friendship. And I wish you the best.
Likewise,
So thank you.
you're welcome.
Fernando.
So I was here when you guys added on, and it was a big deal that you accepted the position, and it really helped the city of Globe, because at that time we were having trouble getting things through the courts and processed, and we felt like it was time that we put that in our own hands, and I think you did an excellent job. You were very fair, you were very honest, and we're just blessed to have you. I apologize for putting you through photo radar, but I'm glad you survived it.
The photo radar episode for the city of Globe was really quite interesting. I was very opposed to it at first. I really believe that law enforcement should have a direct visual component in a case. If we were going to accuse a person of a crime, there should be a person to testify as to the evidence. And so I started out very biased against it. And interestingly, in myself, I saw myself change as I got to know how that system worked. It became some of the best evidence I ever saw. And having video of intersections and accidents where two people would say, I had a green light. And the other person would say, I had the green light. But they crashed into each other. And we play the video, and it would show clearly that one vehicle ran the red light and ran into the other person. It was phenomenal evidence. And so I had to do a complete shift and adapt to that new technology, which I then embraced, and then we did away with. My goal originally was to become an expert witness in photo enforcement, which takes about 5 years, and we didn't last 5 years in photo enforcement. But that was a really interesting time. I enjoyed that. It's been a blast. Thank you all.
Freddie has.
I just want to say congratulations and best of luck to with you and your family and your future endeavors.
On horses?
There you go.
Judge, I got a few words too. Judge Perlman, I also have a few words. I also was here when you were hired, and I remember those days, and you've always been a pleasant individual to greet people, to meet people. I mean, you always have that positive attitude that really reflects out to other individuals, and you're gonna be missed here, and we appreciate all your 16 years that you served in the city here.
Thank you.
All right, we gotta do a picture in front of the council. And then we have some.
We can get closer here.
So we gonna stand up?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, good. And
Should I unwrap this here?
I think you should.
Yeah? Why not?
Be careful.
You know it's close. Bring my pocket knife, but I figure you're welcome.
I carry one.
you look closely, it should say something.
Is it a pocket watch?
It is a pocket watch.
Nice.
Beautiful. It is beautiful. It says John Perlman, Globe City Magistrate. It is beautiful and I will cherish it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Good luck. Congratulations.
All right, Jordan, you got something to live up to.
The standard's been raised.
Put it all together, so. Put the instructions. There you go. Judge, thank you.
You are welcome.
So item C is presentation and possible direction from the council on type, configuration, and specifications for potential future ladder truck acquisition for the city of Globe. We got Chief Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we wanted to present to you some information that we've gathered and look at and make a recommendation related to which direction we would like to go when it comes to an aerial apparatus purchase for the city of Globe. You know, when we look at what our mission is, you know, our mission is to be prepared to serve the community, to make sure we're professional when we're doing so, to be as safe as we possibly can, not only for our citizens, but for, you know, particularly for our personnel. And in the process of doing it, we want to make sure we're doing so in a manner that's going to reflect positively on the city and what we do as a department. When we look at the need for an aerial apparatus, there's a few things that drive that need. When we start talking about ISO requirements, ISO has some basic guidelines for when does an entity need to have this type of apparatus in their fleet. A couple of things drive that. When you look at 5 or more buildings that are 3 stories or greater, approximately 32 feet in height, or buildings that have a fire flow that requires 3,500 gallons per minute or greater. When we look at the city, we do have an inventory of buildings that meets that requirement, that exceed the 3-story mark, or that meet or exceed the 3-story mark. When we look at future growth, there's some proposals in there for future growth that will just add to that inventory of buildings. Add into that special facilities, nursing homes, senior housing. Hill Street School is a good example of that, multi-story senior housing that helps drive that need. High occupancy buildings, such as that. Industrial facilities within the community. And then any kind of special rescues that type of apparatus might have an impact in a successful operation. Things with high angle rescue, swiftwater rescue in particular. You know, when you have, you know, potential air resources that may be out of ways, that gives you a potential solution to getting out above a vehicle and pulling the people that may be stuck on top of a vehicle out. There's some operational things that can go along with that. As you guys, as this council's aware, you know, our current ladder truck recently failed inspections. It's a 30-year-old piece of equipment. You know, we've done a lot to try and keep that on the road and operational. But there's only so much that can be done when it comes to doing that. When it comes to keeping that equipment serviceable and useful. And as it ages, you know, particularly in today's environment, it becomes a lot harder to get parts for an aging fleet. So with that, you know, we as a community, there's clearly a need here for this type of apparatus. So when we start looking at that, there's some different options that are out there that are available, and you know, things that we need to consider when we start looking at those options. You know, what is the vertical reach going to be for that equipment? You know, ISO, basically the standard states, you know, you want to be able to reach the top floor of your building or a minimum of 100 feet is what the standard defines as, you know, what the standard sets for the type of apparatus capability that you need to have. In our case, currently, the current apparatus, that configuration would meet the requirement for what we have currently, but as we continue to look at and plan for the future, that's something that we're taking into consideration. The other thing is horizontal reach. You know, it's not just how far can you reach up, but it's how far can you reach out as well. There's locations within the city where we have larger residential structures that, you know, the closest we could potentially position an apparatus is approximately 120 feet. So having that ability to reach out and work to get in close enough to be able to operate or potentially access a roof if needed is important. So horizontal reach, when you start talking about setbacks, those type of things becomes important as well. The type of configuration, whether you're going to have it with a pump on it or not. You know, our current one has a pump. We stay with that recommendation. I feel that's important. There are trucks out there that they specify without pumps, and they require a fire engine to tag along with that truck and support it. You know, we may or may not have that capacity in terms of manpower or in terms of equipment. So having that on the truck and available is important. One of the major uses we use this type of apparatus for is for elevated master screens. We can get above a fire. We can help hopefully potentially stop the spread of a fire, especially through a larger structure, or prevent it from spreading to other structures. Weight capacities, you know, and this is when you start talking about weight capacities, looking at not only what can that aerial handle in terms of weight, you know, what can the configuration of the truck, you know, do you need to have more than one rear axle? That's a big concern when it comes to the weight capacity of the chassis of that vehicle is can it support the weight? You know, one of the challenges you have with a configuration like we currently have is just the ability to support not only that aerial but any equipment you need to put on it. We operate in an environment where, you know, we don't send a lot of trucks and we don't have multiple trucks coming to an incident. So having the needed equipment for that on a single piece of equipment or a single truck is imperative for us. Accessibility in terms of slopes, grades, you know, can we get the truck around to the majority of the places where that truck would need to go to be effective? You know, we understand here that, you know, terrain is a challenging thing for us, and can be a challenging thing. And then, you know, what kind of configurations can you operate in with that truck? You know, there's a lot of capacity within this type of apparatus for technical rescue type situations. Whether that be rope, whether that be swift water, like I had mentioned, you know, there is, based on the type of apparatus you select, there are a lot of capacity or a lot of capabilities that can go into having and provide an advantage when it comes to a technical rescue situation. The biggest thing we consider when it comes to this is safety. We want to make sure that A, our personnel are safe, and B, if we have to perform any rescues, that those individuals are safe, and that that we're able to get them to a position of safety from whatever situation they might be in. This type of apparatus comes with some important considerations when it comes to safety, because you have to have an understanding of what the loads are doing to that truck based on the position it's in. A good example of that is when you extend a ladder straight out, that tends to be your lowest point of strength, meaning that's where it's, when it's elevated at a steeper angle, you tend to have greater tip loads. When it's out at a straight level position, it's going to be less so. So when we look at different types, there's a number of different configurations that go along with this. Everything we've looked at here, and everything that that was considered when it came to doing this is rear mount trucks. That means that aerial device is mounted on the rear of the vehicle. There are other configurations, mid-mount configurations. One of the drawbacks to that is in most of your mid-mount stuff where the base of the aerial will be mounted towards the center of the truck, you extend the length of that vehicle because of that. So when we looked at this, we looked at primarily rear mount apparatus. There's other things that you can get into that we didn't consider, such as tractor drawn aerials. They tend to be a lot more manpower intensive when it comes to this. So when we look at the current configuration we have is what we would call a straight ladder. It's the basic tool for the basic job. You have a ladder. Typically, you have tip loads that range from 750 down to 250 pounds. A lot of that can be based on the positioning of the apparatus and how that ladder is set up. These trucks will have a narrower profile at the tip because it's just a straight ladder. You don't have anything sitting at the end of that ladder, such as a platform that's operated off of. That gives it some maneuverability in some instances that may not be otherwise available. To access that in pretty much any instance, you have to climb up the side of the truck on the ladder, and then you're going to climb up the ladder. Whether that's with tools, with anything you're going to take with you, you pretty much have to take it with you from the ground up, other than a few potential hand tools that may be mounted on the aerial itself. You're going to have to carry it with you.
Is that with this piece of equipment or?
That's with the current style that we have. That's what the current style that we have.
Like load that little articulating thing and have tools and equipment on there.
Right, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but with a straight stick, your personnel are going to operate in single file. If you do have to perform a rescue, that person, you're either going to have to do a pretty complicated move to get them out and onto there and down to the ground, or they have to be mobile themselves to be able to get on the ladder, move down. If you have to perform multiple, it becomes even more challenging because you're going to have to shuffle people as you go. You can get them positioned fairly close to the ground. In most cases, you can get, depending on which direction the ladder's set. The picture you can see up there with the under straight ladder, that ladder can actually drop down pretty close to the ground. The tip of that ladder can, in that position. You usually have about 180 or so degrees that you can deal with that. When you operate that, in most instances, your personnel, the person that, if you're operating that with a master stream like is pictured there, if you have somebody at the tip of that ladder that can see what they're doing and looking down in, they're going to have to be on an SCBA, which is going to limit their time frame that they can be up there. again, when you look at that, you know, that's a very basic configuration, and it's meant to meet the basic need. If you look at when you start looking at a platform, with a platform, again, talking about load rating, the minimum load rating on a platform is 750 pounds. That's the minimum that apparatus is allowed. The one in question that we're talking about, a little over 1,000-pound tip load that's listed on there. Those tip loads can range and vary. That tip load is also impacted on anything, same as a straight ladder, same as with a platform. If you're flowing water, you basically are going to cut that tip load in half on what you can do there. With a platform, I can have 2, potentially 3 personnel in that platform as it's operational. Those personnel, in most cases, you'll have onboard air systems, so they don't necessarily, if you're doing a master stream operation, they don't necessarily need to have an SCBA bottle with them. They can still have their masks, and there are regulator points that they can connect their regulators to, and they can operate off of the onboard air system if that's needed, if the environment that they're in is poor. You've got increased capacities for limited mobility victims. You have, if you're in the process of rescuing a victim, you know, you have increased capacities to if they're not real mobile, you can still move them there. In most cases, you can get them pretty close to the ground with a platform and get them out. With the greater tip loads, you have more capacity for victims that you can put into that bucket if need be, or the platform. In addition, it adds some safety because you have 360 degrees surrounding you at least to approximately waist level. It can go closer to the ground. Most of your platform apparatus, you can reach somewhere around 8 to 10 feet below grade for about 180 degrees or a little bit more. You know, basically from the sides and around, that apparatus there, that aerial ladder will reach below grade. That's limited if you're dealing with barriers of any kind along the side. If you were trying to go over a bridge, that would be limited by any guardrails, anything that comes there that is going to limit that's going to limit how far you can reach with that and where you can go. And greater water flow, you can have, you know, in this case, in the case of the apparatus we're looking at, you have about a 2200 GPM pump. Typically, that platform can flow somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,250 gallons per minute just out of the tip of that apparatus, as long as your water supply system is supporting that. In looking at considering what we're doing, you know, one of the major things we looked at is there's a manual called the Aerial Apparatus Buyer's Guide. They don't support Aerial Apparatus Manufacturer Association. They put out a guide for purchasing. They don't support any one manufacturer. You know, their goal is to reach out to the consumer and say, hey, these are the things you need to consider. And when you start talking about densely populated multi-story areas, you know, the platform apparatus is their recommendation because of the capacities that it provides for you. And then finally, you look at an articulating platform. An articulating platform, very similar to a platform. The biggest difference there is what's called a jib section. And if you look in the photo there, you can see exactly what a jib does for you. You have about an 8-foot section of ladder that can articulate downward, and so it allows you to reach over obstacles. gives you just a little bit of added capacity when it comes to that. When it comes to safety, it gives you, you can see from the bottom picture there, anybody that has to work off that platform, if they're grabbing tools off that truck, they're not lifting that tool up on top of the truck. They're not lifting that tool and handing that up to somebody that's already in the platform. They're stepping right into that platform. And ideally, in most circumstances, they should be stepping right out of that platform. It gives you a lot better access and egress when it comes to dealing with parapet walls that stick up on a flat roof. When it comes to if it comes to ventilating on steep roofs, you may not even have to step onto that roof. You can just set that bucket close by, step to the edge, do anything you might need to do. Potentially maybe 1 foot on the roof if you had to, but it allows you work. And with this, another person in that bucket can be simply making fine adjustments to put you in a position that you may need to be in if you have to shift a little bit to do what you're doing. It gives you better access in subgrades. This apparatus, I can put that platform, like it shows, close to the ground, immediately in pretty much 360 degree pattern. Doesn't matter where I'm at, as long as I can get it around to the side. You can see we have it set up here in an alleyway on, in this case, Mesquite Street. No matter where I'm at, is if I can move that aerial in a lateral direction, I can get that platform close to the ground and do anything I may do. If I need to reach over a bridge to do something, a swift water rescue or something, I can still, even with obstacles, I can still get another 8+ feet of drop down to do anything I may need to do there. And this is, when we looked at everything, this is the way we are recommending going. Why are we recommending doing that? Let's see if it'll work. Danny, can you fix me? I thought. I messed up the PowerPoint. If are you able to play that video on your end, Danny? No, that didn't work too well. You can see with the video there, that's on the Elks building. They're able to not only access, they can set that platform over that parapet wall, and literally you're stepping out right onto the roof. Again, back to safety. What does that mean? That means we're limiting the need to step up, climb ladders potentially. We're limiting the need to lift tools and move tools overhead. We're reducing the amount of exertion required on the part of our personnel to accomplish a task. They can get into it easily at ground level. They can get out of it. Ideally, they step right out onto a roof. Are there going to be situations where you can't overcome an obstacle? Yeah, and we have plans and we do training for that on having additional ladders in place to work with that. I don't know why that video turned that way, but if you look at the picture there, even if that apparatus was positioned further ahead, you have the potential still to be able to access that second window on the top story, even if the building in front of it on the other side of the alley is potentially, would potentially hinder you otherwise, because you have that articulation portion in there.
How long does
So-
it take for it to go up and down? If you want to, is it a minute or is it?
Yeah, it's not very long. You have, you know, the truck is designed to move at certain speeds. Sometimes you have what's called high idle and normal idle on the truck that would, you know, that would dictate how fast that moves. But the technology, that's the other thing that went into that. You can't see it in this picture, but you might be able to see it in the previous. If you look in that picture, the top left picture on this one, you can see that ladder is set up right next to a vehicle. There's a vehicle between the outriggers that lift that truck up on the ground. Those outriggers, the way this truck was set up, those outriggers are what we call short jacked, meaning they're not extended all the way out. But, you know, the other important thing to consider when it comes to one of these pieces of equipment is what are those limitations? Like I said, when it, you know, that normally a short jack system on an older piece of equipment like what we have now, I would have to override all the safety systems to be able to operate that. With this one, there's with this type of truck, and most of them have some type of a similar system with it, is this is designed, it's not going to let you exceed the safety margins on that ladder. If you looked at that ladder when we operated it, when we swung it back towards the Cedar Street side of Mesquite there, over what would be John Daniels barbershop, Dominion Cutting. You know, when we swung it over, there were some limitations that truck imposed on you, because you start to press the safety margins of that truck, and it's not going to allow you to do that. The controls for this they're joystick controls. There's controls not only in the platform itself. There's controls on the side of the truck. There is even in this one, there is even a remote control that the apparatus operator can step back where he can get a clear view of everything that's going on and operate that. And then there's controls at the base of the ladder. So you have a lot of points that give you the ability to control what's going on with that piece of equipment. Those safety systems are a critical thing to have in place. There's also fail safes built in though too. You know, if all of those are electronic controls, and they're designed on our old ladder. You know, if you move that ladder and then stopped, especially if you were set at a higher idle speed, you'd get a lot of bouncing and stuff. These systems pretty much eliminate that when it comes to how smooth this truck operates. One of the things that you go back to safety on this one is manpower limitations. You know, that's one thing we know here that, you know, is always going to be a challenge for us, is manpower. So, you know, it's not uncommon for us here on a single fire for us to go through multiple cycles on an air bomb. We go in, we work, we come back out, get a little break, we go again. So the more fatigued individuals become, the more likelihood that they're going to get injured. Whether it's, you know, taking a bad step, whether it, you know, in anything, the more likelihood. So anything we can do to help reduce fatigue as they're working is going to help limit injuries to our personnel. You know, when we reduce injuries, we reduce costs to the city. The capabilities that something like this provides us in terms of rescue, in terms of that, are, you know, far exceed, I think, what we've had in the past. The ability to do rope operations off of this, the ability to do swift water operations off of this, to be able to potentially pull somebody off the top of a car that's stuck in one of our creek crossings. those capacities, are important. As we look at building up, as we see more and more interest in that, having the right tool to do a rescue there is going to be important. Especially as we start looking at this the long-term future of the city. This isn't a purchase that's here for 10 years and then relegated. It's something that we know is going to be here and in service for a longer period of time. So we want to be able to plan for the future and what we're doing. There are, we know there's some concerns that go along with this. It is a larger piece of equipment. That presents issues when it comes to housing. It could present issues when it comes to the terrain, the type of terrain that we have. The advantage we've had is, we've had one of these trucks here. We've operated it within the city. We've operated in some of our more constrained areas, and it did fine. Maintenance is always a concern. We've transitioned pretty much all of the fire department maintenance over to vendors, those vendors that have emergency vehicle technicians, because it is critical when we're doing this that we make sure things get done correctly, that we have, that as a municipality and as a department, when somebody has to see our maintenance records, it's easy for us to go to our vendor and say, show the maintenance records on this. And we have those maintenance records. The work is performed by people whose specialty is to work on fire apparatus. Training, one of the things we've done over the course of the last year, we had a group that worked on and we've now implemented driver operator training. We implemented engineer positions. We want to make sure as we move that into the future that that's a sustainable program. And then the last thing is housing. No matter what we look at when it comes to this type of apparatus, we have a major challenge with housing as things exist now. I looked at a straight ladder configuration. It's about 41 feet. That gives us about 6 inches on one end of the truck in our current apparatus bay, and maybe 6 inches in the front of the truck, if it'll even fit. We're extremely constrained in the current position, so there would have to be consideration. There would have to be consideration when it comes to housing any truck that with the reach that we need. In how are we gonna house it, and that's gonna have to be a discussion that's had. It is not there's no easy solutions to that problem. The other thing as part of this, and I'll just go real quick through this, is I reached out to several different chiefs and lieutenants throughout the United States to ask and to talk about these equipment. I went on my own and looked. None of these that I have listed here were recommended by the vendor. I just reached out on my own. Chief McCord from Heath, Ohio. All of these range in size from about 6,000 population to about 16,000 population. All of them range in sizes from staffing to they have 2 full-time people with supplemented by volunteers up to they have 6 people on duty at a given day. All of their feedback on the trucks was impressive. I reached out to Prescott. I hadn't heard anything back. Prescott just finished their final inspection on basically the same specification that we're looking at for this. And then I referenced the Fire Apparatus Manufacturers Association Buyer's Guide when it comes to a lot of the information that I have in here. I've included some additional information for your consideration when it comes to this. Again, when it comes to where we see the future going here, when it comes to the limitations that we know we're going to be faced with as we go forward, no matter what, because of the rural nature of where we're at and the limited number of departments here and that, you know, what, you know, the limited number of apparatus of this type in the area. You know, what do we feel is gonna best meet the needs of the community? And again, this is kind of where we've landed in that, and it is our recommendation that we look at this type of apparatus as we move forward through the process. And I don't have a good Jerry Blarn slide with question mark on it.
Fernando, go ahead.
How much are we talking about here?
So about 2.2 million.
2.2?
How much have we budgeted?
That is
Mayor, if I could.
that is
How much-
equipped.
How much have we budgeted so far?
majority of
for
equipment.
this apparatus?
For the truck, we have 200,000 this last budget cycle for the station and the truck. But, we were looking at other avenues of how to get the truck. And so if those avenues pop up, they could go really quick. So we want to make sure that we have a spec and a price locked in so we can just turn around and hand that over. So it wouldn't, want to be ready so that you guys so council is all on board as to what we may request if given the opportunity.
Just follow up, this truck that you have given us with all of this, the quote that you got, this is the truck that will work for you. This is the truck that you and your staff want.
That is
This
the
after-
truck that
after
we're,
looking
that is the
at
truck that we're recommending.
Okay.
There are some basic configuration things that can be added in terms of space, but in terms of the aerial type, in terms of the basic size configuration, that is what we're looking at. The other thing that, we start considering is delivery times and that, what is,
Sure.
what are projected times? I know Payson just put out an order for some trucks. You're talking 3+ years of lead times on trucks, different trucks.
But in
there.
this, if I could, if this has everything that you're asking for, correct? The
That-
truck the quote you've given us is everything that you would expect or want on that truck.
The quote there is everything. The only exception that is not included into that is we equip that with the majority of everything. The only thing that's not included in that quote is extrication equipment.
Okay.
I think, thank you, Mayor. I think you answered my question, turnaround time. So if we're to say, hey, let's get this 3 years out, you can't just go to
This-
a car lot and say, I want that one.
And right now, we have some advantages. This aerial is something that's been a pretty high demand for Rosenbauer to produce. So they've actually designed and put together designs for this type of apparatus ahead of time that they're building out before they even have orders for those, because there is a greater demand for those. So when we're talking about lead times right now, the lead times that they have for this would be approximately the end of 2026.
End of 2026?
Before you, Fernando, go ahead.
So how long is this truck? So is
48
is
feet.
is the property that we're proposing to put the new fire department in, would it be able to house this?
The apparatus bays are big enough. The apparatus bays, those apparatus bays are designed for one truck like this and a small truck, or two normal pumpers back to back.
And then the other question is, would you be getting rid of the old ladder truck, or would you use it as a backup for a big fire? What would you do?
So, there's some challenges to that. Everybody that I've reached out to that is in the business of refurbishing ladder trucks, that's the third party recommendation from. So when we get that ladder inspected, it's from a third party. That is the third party recommendation, is replacement or refurbishment. Everybody that I've talked to, we have previously worked with Fire Trucks Unlimited, not on a refurbishment, but on some additions to the pumper that we purchased. They have, their recommendation is not even to touch it. The age of the truck, the 30 years old, it's not even to touch it. Your value based versus what you're gonna get out of it is that. So, that presents a challenge in that we wouldn't have a reserve truck available.
Freddie?
Yeah, just some comments. This council that's been paying attention, we have for probably a couple of years now, when we were made aware that this day is coming, that this ladder truck is at the end of its useful life. And listening to you, talk about how difficult it is to get parts and things like that, there's a life cycle for mechanics and machines, and I get that. I think, I come from a work industry. I come from a labor-intensive industry. I worked in the field for 20 years, working in the elements, the heat, the cold, late at night, and working with equipment, working with your hands, working with hydraulics, things like that. And I'm all about safety. I'm all about providing equipment to our staff that would make their jobs easier and safer. And, as time goes on, those types of safety mechanisms are built industry-wide. And you're proving that here with your demonstration and everything you're seeing. These kinds of things, maybe they were there in the past, maybe we didn't have the funds to do it back 20 plus years ago. But we have a fundamental responsibility here, this mayor and council, to provide those core services to our public and to our citizens, and more importantly, to our employees that are out there really risking their lives in a lot of cases to support our community and those that pass through our community. We have an obligation to provide services for those that don't live here but pass through here and need our service. It's just, that's what we do, and that's one of the fundamental core responsibilities, in my opinion, that a city's responsibility is to provide those services, along with, public works and police. This is one of the core ones. I just can't see how this could not improve the quality of life of our firefighters and our community. And no particular order. It provides quality of life for both the employee and the citizens. I'm completely for the purchase of a ladder truck. I don't see, we're looking at longevity here. I don't see why we should start carving out items to dwindle away the cost. I think what we need to do as a council is we really just need to, go to work and see how we're going to get this funded. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
But I do appreciate everything that you guys do day in and day out. I've seen you in action before. And the professionalism that you all provide, and we had an example today, bringing somebody back to life, is just, that you can't put a cost on that. You just can't put a cost on that. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Freddie. Mariano?
Mr. Mayor, two things. I wish the legislature was here tonight to listen to us as we deliberate this one particular $2.2 million question. I really do. These are the things we sweat over that they don't realize. The traveling public expects the highest level of emergency response from the Globe area. It doesn't matter if they're traveling out of Phoenix or across from government agencies as they come. They expect the highest level of response. That said, I spent a career watching as resources in a region go away, and that's the first question I've always asked when I'm analyzing a region as an emergency planner. Who's replacing that capability? What area can they go to to draw that resource back into the area. And I'm just talking travel time, simple travel time. It's an hour and a half to 2 hours to Phoenix Fire Department. We have SWAT teams that come out of the valley, a 2-hour turnaround time. We don't have that option on calling out a Phoenix Fire Department truck. That's 2 hours away, plus whatever the need is, they have to outfit that truck and come running, or a wildland fire truck. We don't have that luxury of time. We are in a hub that services the needs of all the agencies in this region. That's my career, watching how agencies enter their agreements to help each other. And when you're talking of turnaround time of a resource arriving of 2 hours, you can't do anything. You're stuck. So we have the responsibility, and as I said, I wish the legislature was here tonight to listen to this dialogue. We have the responsibility to provide the necessary emergency resources to supplement the needs of this entire region. I'm not bragging. Everyone looks to Globe Fire and Globe PD for resources. I myself had to watch my parents' house burn down, and we had everything on site trying to control Mother Nature. We couldn't do it. We were overwhelmed immediately. And it was a simple 15-mile-an-hour wind that blew 2 houses and a trailer down. So we have that responsibility tonight to address this future that we are achieving. We have major development coming in. We have the revitalization of the entire business districts in town. I was here many years ago when the Tano Hotel burned down. I came down from the county and checked in, and it might have been you, Al, with the fire chief and said, need anything in the county? I could use about 10 more trucks right now. The point was, we're it. We are it, and we have to make that commitment to take care of our own on a city basis as well as a regional basis. This is our charge and our responsibility. I sincerely wish the legislature was here tonight to hear this tale of woe. What I suspect is that we will fess up to our responsibilities and meet it and rise above it and get ahead of the curve to get another resource or replace another resource that is sorely needed. That first bullet point is a jaw dropper. The department's current aerial apparatus is non-operational, leaving a critical gap in our firefighting capabilities. And as a planner, when I see that kind of a bullet point, I don't sleep good at night. As a state planner, I know where the weaknesses are, or I knew where the weaknesses are in our departments. Some driven by lack of funding or too small the size of an entity that is trying to do its best to provide the emergency services to their constituency. So I suspect we're going to have to meet this challenge again, knowing that our future is bright, knowing that we have many opportunities ahead of us. And if something happens on a bad day, that we have the capability to meet it and invoke or respond to a request for another agency locally. Those days have already happened. You've seen it in several wildland fires across the region. And as we always do, we rely on our planning and our training to meet the need with the best that we have and to call out outside resources. And that's why you have emergency managers that assist you in that. But the point being, we're it for the radius of 50 miles. We're it. And yes, we have wonderful things called choppers and airplanes and all these wonderful things, but the first 2 hours in any response is upon the local entity. And if they're real lucky, they have enough resources to bat it down. Sometimes they don't. And this is one of those moments that we have to face our responsibilities and try to work together and make the commitment, knowing what our future is about to be, and on a bad day in that future, that we can service that emergency or that responsibility. As I said, we're it. There's nobody around for 2 hours. And in most of the state, that's the way it is. And as I said, someone who has a car accident in the middle of the reservation or in the middle of the road to Payson, they expect the same level of response. They expect it. And that's why I wish the legislature was here tonight to listen to us. Anyway, I suspect we will meet our responsibilities. And I look forward to seeing another red truck in the arsenal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Chief, I do have a few questions that I jotted down because, and these are for my education to understand what an articulating versus a platform ladder is, advantages versus disadvantages. There's no doubt that there's a need. We need to have a ladder truck. And we as a council are responsible to try and come up with funding to be able to purchase a ladder truck, not only a ladder truck, but a new fire station. And we're in the process of doing that. And so there's no doubt that we have to have a ladder truck. I worry about our downtown district. I worry about the industrial facilities like the mines and stuff. At this time, we have no capability of doing any elevated streams operations. We have no ladder truck in our community, right?
There is a 55-foot telesquirt that's older than our current one that remains in operations. That is all that remains in the
It still
community.
operates?
It still operates.
Okay. I'm worried about, well, that we don't have anything that we're able to do that. A couple of questions. Comparisons in cost to an articulating ladder compared to a platform ladder.
$120,000.
How much?
$120,000.
$120,000, okay. Do we have, I go back because of how much trouble, issues we have with electrical and maintenance and hydraulics. Do we have a history on articulating ladder and the maintenance issues that they have? And it kind of concerns me. I don't know, are there any departments in Arizona that have an articulating ladder?
Prescott.
Prescott's the only state.
Prescott's the initial one.
Or
So,
Tucson, why they don't have looked at one?
so I don't know about looking at one. I know for a fact Kingman is now looking at one. The markets for fire apparatus can be, as you know, can be finicky. There's agencies that only purchase certain brands and makes of apparatus. So that can drive some of that as well. Some of that is there's agencies that, when they're looking at trucks, they're looking at purchasing a large number of this type of truck. I can't answer as to why Prescott is among one of the first in Arizona to look at the technology. I know that the technology is being widely used throughout a lot of areas. The biggest thing with this type of truck, you're not looking at a large number of components beyond what a platform would be. You're looking at a couple of hinge points. You're looking at a couple of hydraulic rams and some actuators to make sure everything lines up when it comes in. Everybody that I've talked to, particularly the chief from Heath, Ohio, and there was an entity from Texas. Both of those departments have had their apparatus in service for a little bit longer than what some of the others. And the one in Idaho. There's one in Idaho as well that's just outside of Pocatello. They have reported the normal maintenance considerations on their aerials, but nothing back related to issues with the articulation platform or a portion of that. All it is, again, is about an 8-foot section of ladder that is allowed to drop down. It can raise and drop down at the end of that. You have the actuators, and there's actuators in a normal platform to keep that bucket or keep that platform level, in whatever position it's in.
You talked about the width and the height and the length. Obviously, you know our streets, and apparently you guys already drove it in the area, and there was no concerns. when we went to ladder 301, I remember it was 1 foot wider than our ladder 30, or engine 307. So that was a big concern.
Right.
I mean, it barely fit through Barati Street. And we have a lot of streets like that. Now, obviously, if we have an engine go down, you're probably gonna use that as a backup first for medical if needed. And do you think it'll access all the streets that we think, and also not only here, but what happens if we go to Miami or we go somewhere else and
You know, the reality that we have is there's going to be limitations. You know, when you start looking at a 109-foot truck or a 109-foot aerial on a truck, you know, you're looking at a longer piece of truck, or a longer piece of equipment, sorry. There's gonna be some limitations. You know, that's one advantage we've had is this council has been progressive in purchasing apparatus. We have other apparatus that could potentially be run as that. All of our engines would have to go down, and then in order to really have to consider that as a first out piece of equipment to respond, you know, to respond as our primary unit versus as an as needed unit. One of the things that goes along with these trucks, you know, if you talk to anybody, you know, we talk to Superstition Fire and Medical, talk to Mesa, you know, if they're running those trucks every day, all day on some of the thing, there's a lot of wear and tear that goes on that. One advantage we have is that we typically don't operate that type of equipment every day. We typically operate it as for specific responses, downtown responses, industrial responses. You know, if we know we have an incident in one of our larger buildings, we have the leadership in place that understands and will understand, you know, when is it appropriate to put a crew on that truck and send it. And there are, but let's face it, there's areas in, Barwadi Street, for example, our new engine 307, they've made a few little tweaks there and stuff, but it barely fits. And there's a reality to the community that we're in that makes those challenges. Now, granted, that's one of only a few places where we're really restricted on where we can access.
Yeah, and I think one of the concerns I have is that, you see some of these departments throughout the state running these dual axle heavy duty platforms to medical calls and stuff. Right. And I know when we ran 307, when we ran our 301 and 307 was down for over 6 months, we went through a set of tires within 6 months. And it's just a heavy piece of equipment to be running around, especially in our streets that we have the up and downs and the narrow roads too, stuff like that. Yeah. But
you could specify what 301 and 307.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ladder 301 is the current ladder truck we have. 307 is just a pumper.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. But I guess through training and I have total confidence in our department professionalism. Where you can't take those pieces of apparatus. If we go on a mutual aid call and we damage a piece of equipment, I mean, who pays for that?
Right.
That's what my concern is. To also go into other places. I know what it is to spec a ladder. In 1992, I was part of the specification or the team that wrote up the specs for ladder 301. I spent a week in Orlando, Florida. Where they built it, actually. We were replacing a 40-year-old ladder truck, 1952 LaFrance. And we had a hassle replacing it with council. We had to actually videotape. It took us 11 minutes, 4 firefighters to set up an elevated stream with the old ladder truck. When we bought ladder 301, it took 2 minutes, 1 person. So big difference in technology, and even now is even different. But yeah, we totally understand. And I think if that's what the department and you and the department feels that you're comfortable with that type of apparatus, the maintenance, that we do our homework. that's all we're concerned, it's a large amount. And, you know, we're also trying to build a new fire station, and we just wanna make sure that we plan for the future.
Yeah.
What we do, and really, that's our responsibility, to try and come up with funding for it. So I do appreciate, your presentation. One of the questions, is there an option, because we're at a critical need, is there an option to borrow a ladder truck from another department in the meantime?
So I've had some people reach out regarding that, and to date have not had any real success in that. That doesn't mean it's off the table. I know that I've been told that there's some ladders coming offline out of reserve fleets that may be potentially available for use, but as of yet, we have not had any firm commitments from.
And just for the purpose of education of the council, because I understand that, but if we don't have a ladder truck available in our historic downtown, and when I say elevated streams, like we had in the Tano fire, we don't have the capability of putting water directly on top of the fire. We would have to depend on hand lines on the road and just lob water into these buildings, which increases the potential for fire spread more rapidly. So without that potential, we're especially in our downtown district area.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Is this an all-at-once purchase, or can we structure the purchase to be able to put a down payment on and then monthly make payments to get us to that $2.4 million?
So there are always financing things. Our recommendation is and has been that, you know, there are trucks that are in their queue. There's still a couple available that, you know, they may have just started manufacturing on the body or something like that, that if we put a deposit on, can be held. We don't make any payments until after that truck is delivered on that piece of equipment. From there, there's financing options. There are options out there for.
So we could, in our meeting on Thursday, push this and talk about this and funding mechanisms such as that. So looking at where we're at and how much that deposit would be, if maybe you could come up with that information to that meeting on Thursday, I would appreciate that.
I should be able to determine what would be required to hold.
Okay.
To hold one by that time easily.
Fernando?
I had the same question, but my thinking is with a critical apparatus like this and for the future and safety of our citizens, I feel like it would be smart to move sooner than later, try to catch one of these two trucks that are coming off the production line.
Yeah.
And then regardless of the food tax gets cut or not, we have to figure out how to pay it.
That's our
And
job.
we got 3 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or somebody does.
Somebody does, yeah. Somebody does. So the trucks that you say that are possible available, are they articulating ladders or platforms?
They're articulating platforms.
So no platforms are in the make for at all.
There
I think
is-
it's
there
3 or
is a-
4 year
there is-
production.
There is I know at least one platform in their queue as well. Now, whether that's still available or not, I don't know.
But
And
there's still
whether
3
whether
or
either
4
of those
years.
are still available. You're still in essence looking at approximately a year and change for delivery of those.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So next we go to item 4 is consent calendar. Matters listed of the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. Item A is consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. 1, accounts payable, $629,207.15. 2, consideration of approval of council minutes. A, consideration of July 3rd, 2024 special council meeting minutes. B, consideration of August 13th, 2024 meeting minutes. And C, consideration of September 10th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there anybody from council, staff, or the public wishing to remove any of these items for separate consideration?
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments, I move to motion to approve as read.
Motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. We have, new business. Item 5A is presentation of the proposed City of Globe 2025 fee schedule update to council on the adoption process and direction from council to post on the city's website to initiate the 60-day Arizona State statute posting requirements. Paul?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we discussed this, set of fee schedules, updates, 2 weeks ago. And before we post this to start the ticking clock on approval of these and the public process, public hearing, council asked to do a little bit of a deep dive in each of these, and so and I again repeatedly thank council for last week. We were able to pull together 4 separate meetings of 3 council members each to do a work group where we were able to present these just to educate council. I wanted to go through, kind of just go by department and ask if you had any questions about them. I don't think we want to go line by line through them. Okay, and that's fine.
Again? Tomorrow.
But if we do have any questions, and then if everybody's good, we'll start the clock, post these, and then move this forward. We just a note, business license fees are included in here at no change other than a proration. But we do intend to have a deeper dive in the business license at another date in the near future. But I don't think the Vice Mayor wants us to bring this up here because it would be a long conversation.
But it's something that we will review and discuss prior to adoption.
Yes.
On
Well,
the final
and there's
60 day.
we're not going to be on the ticking clock, but we will do it parallel. I think this topic of business license is on the front burner, and let's deal with it. One way or another, let's deal with it. So it will be coming up very quickly. In 2 weeks, if not sooner. But before we do have Judge Reardon here, and the one issue I would like to run by council is see if you have any questions. And so there's 22 pages in front of you. We also have it on the screen. If you can go to the very back and then go forward from the fire fees and see the new court fees, because the new court fees are real important. It so goes fire, and then a little bit for police, and then there's a Globe Magistrate Court fee. Okay, and I just wanted to, then Judge Reardon is here, if you have, and Police Chief is here, if you have any questions about these. This is part of the process of recouping the new fees that we are faced with. We have updated the clerk fees, and we have the magistrate court, and all the way down. So I don't know if it's,
Number these pages.
it's about,
There's a number of these pages.
Yeah.
I should have
About
put page
5
numbers on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should be the front side of the 4th from the back page. So, and I don't want to go line by line, but take a gander. And again, in putting these together, we discussed them with the police chief. We discussed them with Judge Reardon. And discussed them with our prosecutor. Just to make sure that our team is on board and thinks these are a good balance of the true cost of putting these forward. It's not going to recoup 100%. That is positive, but I think it's a defensible amount. So, any questions on?
I guess the question to Judge Reardon is, these are pretty comparable fees that's charged and we feel that we can recover those? If needed?
So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, these are in line. There's just a couple of, I guess, quick comments just for your consideration. So, this is a new experience for me as well. I've operated as a JP for the entirety of my time on the bench going back to 2016. So, as a constitutional officer, I've never really had to worry about cost recovery for the county. That was just not a consideration of mine. And then with magistrate court, you have the statutory obligation to operate your court. And so this is a consideration that must be made. That would be at Paul's direction, and then obviously your guys' discretion as the legislative body in this. My opinion is, from what I have seen, this is fairly in line with common plea agreements that come through with the county. I can speak to, for instance, directly to the DUI assessment for criminal complaints. DUIs are one of the areas where the public is entitled to representation, a court-appointed counsel, because there's a mandatory minimum sentence of jail time. So if anytime somebody's liberty is at stake, they are constitutionally entitled to representation at no cost to them. There is an evaluation that still must take place by the court, and I have to conduct that for each and every case. So the $250 listed here is a pretty consistent amount that is assessed with the Gila County Attorney's Office on their plea agreements.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we looked at fees coming out of a couple places that were like-minded. We actually, Parker, Arizona, had some good samples. Prescott, Arizona had some. Also looked at Peoria, just samplings that I came up with. And these are all kind of taken from those ideas and ranges and types of fees. There's a broader variety of fees, but we thought these hit the needs we have. We have court costs that we need to cover, the IGA with Gila County for the use of the justice court. And we have the contract with the judge, although that is kind of something that we have to absorb. We have prosecutor costs, and then we have extra police costs. That's why some of the warrants, we look at picking up warrants and is extra time for police. So we're actually showing the fee, and to break it down so you understand the amount of the fee, showing like court warrant fee for criminal failure to appear. We're going to kick some money that we'll dedicate to police overtime because it takes extra duty to track these people down. So we're trying to, by breaking it down as we did, as to kind of where the money's going to go, even though it's one big general pot, it shows the variety of departments that need to get involved in this, and how we're going to structure at least a partial payback. We'll never do full cost recovery, but we right now, until we get these in place, we have very little cost recovery.
And these fees here that we're seeing, these are fees recovered to the city. This
Yes.
has nothing to do
Yes.
with the contract with
No.
the different three contracts. This all fees come back to the city into our general fund to
Right.
pay for these costs. Just one more question, I'm sorry. Is there a difference between a fee and then a fine assessed for something?
So yes, if I were to give you the definition now, I off the top of my head, it's essentially splitting hairs though. In this regard, these are listed as fees. They're where you're protected with these is that they exist across just about every municipality in the state. For every municipal court that is operating, there is an attempt to recover some of those costs, because it is a terribly expensive function that has to exist. And not to get off the topic, but just a quick point that I wanted to throw. I didn't mention this to Paul yet. Just to give you an idea in terms of volume and cases that we're at the rate that we're moving them, and that these will be eventually applicable to. So we've been operating since January 1. We have had five settings, about 60 cases have been adjudicated. So of the 60 cases that have been set already this year, with Mr. Jolly and Ms. Flores' involvement, we've already adjudicated 55 of them. So all criminal misdemeanors just rolling through here. Chief Walter's team keeps us very busy.
Judge, do we get retro to that, even though these fees won't go into effect for 60 days?
No.
Correct. So once this is enacted, then you're gonna be able to, as those move forward. But don't panic. There's, for example, I pulled the data, there was nearly 6,000 cases last year. Of those 6,000 cases adjudicated, roughly, well, two-thirds of my volume really comes from the city. So however you want to apply that metric, understand that you guys, particularly with this implementation, I think you'll be in a good position. You can't, obviously, the conversations have been made. You're not going to make money on this endeavor. That's not a goal. It's never been a goal of mine. But at least you can perhaps break even. So, and I've highlighted the conversation. I throw that out there. These are, in my opinion, very reasonable rates that have been listed. I mean, it's not up to me. This is you, right? My job is to apply whatever you legislate. But this is something that I think keeps you free from Goldwater Institute scrutiny. The Scottsdale Municipal Court was subject to that several years back, and it's a pretty scathing report. Ferguson, Missouri is another good example if you ever want a case example of how not to operate your municipal court, and you guys are far from that with what is being proposed here.
So, and Mr. Mayor, members of council, I want to hear from the police chief, but when I think about fees and fines, I think of fees as cost recovery. I think of fines as trying to discourage behavior. Okay, you put and I don't know if that's, a fine is like, don't do this again because it's going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, it's a negative, financial burden. But the fees are not there to try to persuade anybody. It's just the cost recovery, because why should the taxpayers have to cost for these things that are instigated by someone?
These are administration costs.
Yes, we've added $300,000 worth of
Administration
costs. So Dale, your comments?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. A couple of things. One, we're playing catch-up. So I talked to the prosecutor a couple of times this week, and we finally got the rest of the cases. I believe it's the rest of the cases back from the county, and it's going to take us a while to kind of get through all of that. But what I'm seeing is quick turnaround, positive interaction with the prosecutor, and tremendous success. We've had more success in the last 3 or 4 weeks than we've had in some time. So it's really, I think it's a positive thing. I agree with the judge and with the city manager, the difference between the fines and the fees, and we're not going to get a full cost recovery with the money that the city lays out for that, but that's not really what the court was intended to begin with. But I would highly recommend that this is a starting point, and we need to understand that we probably need to reevaluate this next year and a couple following years in a row just to get a better handle on it. This is something new for me. I believe it's new for the judge, actually creating a whole new court system, and it's clearly new for the city. So my recommendation as we move forward is this is best practice that we could find, reaching out to a number of different similar size agencies across the state. We're trying to comply within that matrix. However, I do think it's really important that we truly evaluate every year for the next few years to see, are we missing something, or are we overcompensating in other areas, and make whatever appropriate adjustment that we need to make. I do believe that we'll have a full breakdown, a clearer breakdown of cases created, submitted, and adjudicated that we can talk at more depth 12 months from now. And so this body would have a better understanding of the volume that we're talking about. It's a wonderful community, but we are busy.
Any questions for Chief or the judge, or comments for either one?
Just want to thank you both for the time put into this. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council.
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, city staff, for getting this all together. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
And I know Judge Reardon has a second engagement tonight, so you'll be exiting stage.
Ah.
Oh, yeah, we missed it already.
No, they're 39-17, Miami's up.
Ah,
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we also have, building department fees, we have public works fees, we have administrative fees and, fire fees. Everybody's heard a little bit of everything. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any, questions that they had about, the fees that they discussed in their work group or other fees?
I think you have it later on for work groups, but I guess we could do it here. Does anybody have any, maybe things they want to just highlight in their work group? Because all of us weren't on each work group, so I don't know if there's something,
Yeah.
that.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything I want to point out. I just want to thank everybody for going through this and taking the time.
Yeah.
I think it was important for all of us to get in those rooms and do that. I just want to thank staff as well. This is a serious list and took staff a long time. And I mean, some of our meetings were longer than what they needed to be. Yeah, but I appreciate staff for doing that. Thank you.
So I would just say that, I know that in the ones that I participated in, we weren't trying to gouge anybody. We were trying to just cover our costs and be fair, and it was just time to update it because they were way overdue. So I feel very comfortable with what we did, and I'm sure that you guys did the same, so.
Well, I'd like to say what everybody else has said, the work groups to me are a really outstanding thing that we've been doing lately. And I'm proud to be on those work groups, and recovery, I think, is the key word here. You know, why should innocent people, taxpayers, be paying other people's bills? You know, we should be charging for what we're doing. So I'm totally up for this. This is good. So and thank you for staff, thank you for putting this all together.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, agreed.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions or comments, I'd make a motion to post the City of Globe 2025 fee schedule update on the city's website for the 60 days required per Arizona State statute.
Second.
Got a motion second for item 5A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. We have no action items. Do we have any late agenda items? None listed?
Nope, I don't think so.
We have our second call to the public. Do we have anybody online or?
Let me refresh real quick. Nope, nothing in mail.
No, I'm sorry, nothing by text, Mr. Mayor.
The other item was a new business. We don't have to waive on that, do we?
No, because this will be coming back. There'll
Okay,
be
it'll
a
be coming
series
back.
of,
That's right.
there'll be additional postings, there'll be a public hearing, announcement of that public hearing, and so you don't need to waive the rule.
Schedule meetings, do we have any?
Hope not.
SAP on Thursday.
Thursday, everybody's gonna be there?
Thursday.
Yeah, we're not dressing up for that.
So it is a topic on the agenda for the SAP.
I did not get voted in with a dress code.
Okay, well, it's only for
Hawaiian
February.
shirts,
I
guys.
didn't get voted in for a dress code.
We'll have that discussion.
Any future agenda items? Anybody have any?
No.
Council work groups, I guess we already covered that.
Yeah, but we still want to post, to be transparent, post what work groups met on what time. It helps us remember, although I don't think we'll ever forget that week, so.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay.